Okay, hi, welcome back. So I'm not going to waste too much time. Now we're back into our patch. I'm going to close this max window, and we're going to do something with this data that we've got stored in here. So I can press this any number of times. All it's going to do is change the kind of random data that we've got in there. Okay, so because I know that they're all integers that have come from the random object, I'm going to get rid of this root now. And we're going to just deal with anything that comes out the left outlet of the coll, because we know that it's all going to be the same data type. Okay, so that's all well and good. So let's prove that we can get data out. We know that there's 10 index numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. So because computers are really good at automating, that's why we use them, let's automate reading the data. So we're going to use a counter between 1 and 10. Connect this up to our number box, and I'm going to use a metro. 1000 milliseconds, so 1 second. Connect this up to the counter, and I'm going to use a toggle to turn on and off the metro. So what does this do? A bang will come out the metro every second, and it's going to count between 1 and 10, and when it gets to 10, it will loop back to 1 again. And then it's going to read out each one of the data points one by one in the coll. So let's have a look. Yep, it's working. Fantastic. Now, I might like to change the speed of this, so I'm going to create a number box. And I can change the speed. So let's change it to 4 times a second. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to keep that running. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to create these change these finite data points into something smooth. We might like to be able to view or hear the connection between data points as a smooth line from one point to another. So let's have a look at how we might be able to do this. So there's an object that you may have used in the audio world called line. It has a data equivalent, a control equivalent. It's called line. Now line takes a data point and a time. It's called a ramp time. So when you send data to a line, it takes a certain amount of time to get to that point from wherever it was before. So if I put one of these number boxes down the bottom and then write in a message box 1000, 1000, this is telling my line to go from 0, which is where it defaults to start, up to 1000 in 1000 milliseconds. So let's have a look at this down the bottom. Great. Okay. So, and if I wanted it to go slower, I could make it in 3 seconds. Oop, nothing happening. Why is that? That's because the line is already at 1000. So, let's go back to 0. And we've just proved it works. Okay, now what does this mean for our data? Well, we can create a smooth ramp between each one of these points every single time a point arrives at the line. So we're going to use our pack command one more time. In the left inlet, we're going to receive our data point, but this time I'm going to fix the ramp time by saying 250. So if we have a look now when I connect my data points to the pack, you'll see a ramping up and down of these numbers rather than a finite, discrete data point. Now, if I'd like to change the ramp time in line with the speed at which they're being output, we're just going to connect this speed to here. So I can make things much slower. We have a smoother interpolation. That's very useful. Let's have a look at what it looks like. I'm going to use an object called multi-slider. And in the inspector for multi-slider, we see down the bottom that we've got a few choices. I'd like to change its range because I know that it goes between 0 and 999. And I'm going to make it a point scroll view. Now I'll close this sidebar once more. Now let's have a look at what that data looks like streaming in a visual representation. And that's our data. So the y-axis is 0 to 999, and this x-axis is just simply scrolling one data point at a time. It's a very useful way of just simply seeing what your data looks like. I wouldn't call it a wonderful visualization by any stretch, but it's useful nonetheless. Okay, so, great. We've got data between 0 and 1000, 0 and 999. We're outputting it one data point at a time. We know how many data points there are. It's being output discretely, and then I'm smoothing this to give a nice curve. So, what if I actually wanted to use this for something musical? If I wanted to sonify this. Now, there's many things I could do. Obviously, this kind of curve, we might see this and think of automation, for instance. Automation is something that we associate with curves. We can see this kind of pattern in Ableton Live or Logic or some other program like this. Or you might like to actually sample this information and use it for something else, maybe pitch. So that's what we're going to do right now. One of the first things you'll need to do is to scale this data to something usable. So we've got an object called scale. I know that the data is between 0 and 999. I'd like to scale it to a usable range in MIDI land. So let's do that. So between, say, note 40 and note 72. So if I connect my data to here, and I connect it to another integer, I'll see that it's scaled my data completely to between this range. So that's very useful for me. Okay, so next, what can we actually do with this? Well, let's have a look. I'd like to be able to sample this information rather than simply streaming it. So I'm going to create an integer box, and I'm going to store these data points in the right hand side. They're just going to chill in this box until it receives a bang in here. So I'm going to get rid of this and connect it here. So nothing is going to come out unless I tell it to. Okay, so that's very useful. So if I create another metro, with a toggle, I can create a kind of rhythmic sampling, which is like a sample and hold, of my original data that's been streamed and then scaled to MIDI notes. And to listen to what we have, I'm going to use make note, give it a velocity, give it a time, 250 milliseconds, connect it up, and I'm going to use note out. Connect up the pitch, turn it off first, connect up the velocity, choose my output, which is our normal synthesizer, which is going to be a piano sound, and now let's have a listen. now what we're doing is we've got our data between 0 and 1000, and we're hearing it sonified in MIDI notes. Not terribly exciting, but interesting nonetheless. Okay, so we'll keep that going. I'm going to chunk this into another video, and then in this final video I'm going to show you how you can take this MIDI out, use it in something like Ableton Live, and even use a rhythm to control this sampling here, rather than a simple metro. Okay, see you in the next video.